Having learned a lot about PHP and a little introduction about MySQL and databases, we are going to create a little application, more like a form that submits data to a database when you fill in the fields in the form. Okay, so this is how the form is going to look like. Okay, and when you try to submit, we'll use what we've learned so far to tell our form what to do or how to behave. Okay, so for instance, you create the form and you click, you discover that it prompts you with a message telling you to fill in all fields. Okay, so if you fill, let's say you fill only one field and want to submit, it still prompts you to fill in all fields. Okay, so we are going to see how to create this form, and if you fill in all fields perfectly well, let me just fill it roughly. Now let's say you fill in all fields without mistakes and you have an email, and your phone number. Let's just assume a phone number like that, and let's just put in a little biography. I love PHP. Okay, now when you fill in all data completely, when you click on submit, you discover that your form details was successfully submitted, and you can check that in your database, because the form we are going to be creating will be the type of form that sends the data that any user imputes into the database. As you can see, we have what we just created right here into our database. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through the steps of creating a form like this, and the requirements and the things you need to know. They are not difficult. It's something we've learned in the previous videos. So if there's any particular area you don't understand, I would advise that you go back to the video we talked about that particular thing and look at it again. Okay, so without wasting much time, let's get straight to it. So we're going to do it from ground up. We're going to do it from scratch. We're going to start with building the HTML form, and from what we have here, we have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. We have seven fields. Okay, but when you look at our database actually have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Our database have 10 fields. So now what we did is that, or what we're going to do is, when we are declaring our data types or our columns in our database on the date of birth, what I did for ease was I used a different column for the day of birth, the month of birth, the year of birth. Okay, so if for instance you want to get somebody's date of birth, you can concatenate that using your database and get the date of birth in full. Okay, but I did it like this for simplicity and for better understanding. So let's see how this can be done. Now I'll quickly create a file. Let's begin our form. Okay, so we always start with HTML code for those of you that knows about HTML. So we're going to start with that here. It's HTML open closing tags, and then we're going to create our head tag. So that should be head. Okay, so in our head tag we're going to have a title tag, and our title tag, I want to give it the name form, and let's do title close. Okay, now this is pure HTML. We've not done anything with regards to PHP, but you can just follow me. Okay, so let's open or create our body tag. So that's our body tag, and in our body tag we're going to start creating our form. Okay, but before we do that, let's quickly save this form. Now we're going to save it with .php because I want to actually use this same file or this same document as the action of our form. Okay, so I'll save this as okay, I'll quickly create a new folder here. I'll create a new folder and call it let's call it course form. Okay, let's say that's course form. Okay, let's open that and call this form.php. Now let's select the extension. Now we're working with PHP, and we can just save that. Now we have our PHP file. So we are going to first of all create our form, and you know, just like we normally do it, you open your form tag. Yep, and your form closing tag goes in there. Now your opening tag, let's do that with that, and we can just indent that. So we can just create an action. Let's say form action. Now we want our action to be form.php, because we're going to be creating our action on top of the HTML. So it's going to be form.php, and our method is going to be post. Okay, since we are submitting the data to the database, we're going to use the post method for this. Now we're going to start creating our form, and I want to do my own in a very easy way. So I'm going to create a table. So we're going to use a table and create our form. Okay, so that's my table. So in our table, we're going to have, since we have, let's look at that. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 rows there. So we're going to create 7 rows of data. Okay, 8 plus the submit button, that makes it 8. So we'll quickly create 8 rows of data, and that's going to be tr for table rows. So quickly create our tr tag, tr close. Okay, so we're going to create 3 columns each. Now I'll tell you why I created 3 columns each, but let's first of all create that. So we'll have td. Let's just copy that and paste it a couple of times. Yeah, now let's copy this and paste it 8 times. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now I want to anchor the center column. Okay, I want to anchor the center column, because if you check this on your browser, let me quickly open another tab and go to localhost. Now we have our course form right here, and our form.php. Now there is no, we're not currently seeing anything. That's because we did not give our table a border. Okay, we don't really need a border, but what I'm trying to say is we have 3 columns here. Now what I want to do is, on the first column we'll have our label, on the second column we'll anchor it with we'll just use the NBSB to hold it there, or to hold space. Okay, and then here we'll use our impute, or we'll use it for our impute area. Okay, so here we are quickly going to start. So let me quickly do that. So we'll start in with okay, I actually have a place where I did this, so I'm going to copy and paste all of this. So let me just delete from here. Okay, I'm going to copy that and paste it right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, for those of you that want to follow me, I'm going to scroll gradually, so that you can see what I did and how I did it. And if you want to copy that or follow me, you're going to just pause this video and copy that. Okay, so this was where we started from. Okay, and I aligned my table to the center. Okay, so that will have the whole thing on the center of a browser. So there you'll see table align. This is our first row. Okay, that's our first row, and it have 3 columns. The first column is the label, which is surname. Second column was anchored or was held, and the third column was is the surname impute field. Okay, or the impute area. So we added a placeholder there, your father's name. Okay, so that's just for fun anyway. So we are onto the second row and the third row, which is the date. Now I did this like this because I wouldn't want somebody to mess up with the form. Okay, now if I quickly save this and refresh, now this is our form, and I did the date of birth like this because I wouldn't want somebody to tamper with the dates. So if you have if you know your date of birth, you can just select from a list of date here, and your month here, and a year. Now let's say our form we're creating is only for teenagers, or let's say from children from about 10 years to teenagers of about 19 years. So we have only the date of birth of 10 to 19 years from the year of creating this course, that's 2016. So that is what we have here. Okay, so that's your email, your phone number if you have any alternate phone number, and your biography, you know, like that. So this is how form is going to look like. So let's quickly see how we can use PHP to tell this form what to do and how to send the information given to it into our database. Okay, but first of all, I would like us to create a database in our PHP using our PHP myadmin, and create a table where all this data is going to enter or will be going into, and we'll treat that in the next video. In our last video, we created our form, and we inserted it in a table so as to have a nice arrangement and outlook. So now we're going to start writing our PHP code to work on the form, and I want us to look at the input fields. I want to scroll down, so we'll quickly look at the name of our input field. Now our first name here is surname. That's the very first input field. The next one is first name right here. Now on the date of birth, I divided the input field into 3 parts, and in our database is going to collect 3 different inputs for the day of birth with input field name DOB. Okay, and we have another one for month of birth for input field name MOB, and we have the year of birth with name YOB. Okay, that is for the date of birth. Okay, so our email has a name email right here, and our phone number have the phone number name with an underscore dividing phone and number. So we have an other phone number with the name other phone number, and our last one called bio, which we created a text area for, have a name bio. Okay, here, right here, and our submit button, we did a code span for it, and the name is submit. We type submit and value submit. Okay, so we're quickly going to create our PHP tag right on top here. Okay, so let's start by opening our PHP, opening and closing our tags. Now what we're going to do is, we're first of all going to check. Now since it's a form, let's quickly look at the form again. Since it's a form, we are going to check if each of these input fields and options are set. Now if they are set, we'll check if they are empty. Okay, now if they are empty, will echo a particular statement to the user. Now if they are not empty, then we'll tell it to do something. Okay, or if they're not empty, we'll tell it to pick up the data in each field and send it to our database. Mind you, we've not created our database. We'll look at that in a very short while. So let's go back and check on that. Now we'll say if is set. I'll quickly write that, and we'll do variable $posts underscore posts, I mean, like that. Now if it said the first one was surname, we'll have surname, and the next one I'll just copy and paste that, and then I'll change it. Let me say, and so I'll copy from here to this place. We'll do Ctrl C. Now if it sets, and that's 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Now we are not doing for 8 because our form inputs are 8. Now if we take a look at the form, you have 1 2 3 4 5. Now each of the date of birth have its own name. Okay, this is 1 2 3, so that's 5, you have 6, you have 7, you have 8, you have 9. Okay, so you have 9. We're going to do the is set 9 times, so we have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and we'll have 8. So we'll have one more time. So if it's set, we'll change all of these to, the first one is surname, the second one is first name. Okay, now we have the third one should be DOB, the next one should be MOB, followed by YOB, and then we have email. The next one should be, let's check quickly. Okay, the next one should be phone number, written like this, phone underscore number, and the next one should be other phone number, written like this, and the next one should be bio. Okay, now we are checking to see if it's set. Okay, now if it's set, we're going to tell it to do something. Now open our curly braces. Now what we are going to do is, before we continue, we're first of all going to assign each of the post variables to variable, so as to use the variable instead of typing the long underscore posts. I know the name of the form input field and like that. So now we're going to assign them to a variable under here. So I'm going to do the first one, which is, I'll call it surname. Okay, I'm going to assign that to variable underscore post, and you have surname there. Now I'll do a copy and paste a couple of times, and then 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Okay, so I'm going to change that here. So this is first name, and this is DOB. This should be MOB. This should be YOB, and this should be email. This is phone number. This is other phone number, and this is bio. Okay, very easy. I will change this to first name as well. We'll change this to DOB, change this to MOB, we'll change this to YOB, change this one to email, and then phone number right there. We have other phone number. Okay, and we have bio right here. Now we've assigned each and every one of these to a variable. Now the next thing we're going to do is to check if they are empty. Okay, call on another if statement, and we'll say if empty. Okay, now we'll say if empty for surname. Now we are going to use the or statement. Okay, now if the surname field is empty, or the first name, or any of the fields, okay, so we're going to use or, and we already know that our or symbol is presented with the double strokes that look like a parallel line. So we'll still do another copy and paste here so as to be faster. So do a Control C there, and 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. So here we have that, have that, we'll have that, and that. Let me quickly insert all of that. Now we change the variable name to their respective names. So first name DOB, we have MOB, we have YOB, and right here we have email, we have phone number. Okay, and here we have other phone number, then here we have bio. So we're checking to see if it's empty. Okay, now if each and every one of these is empty, or if at least one of them is empty, we're going to echo please fill in all fields. Please fill in all fields. Okay, now but if they are not empty, we'll call on an else statement. Okay, now the else statement is going to first of all check on something. Okay, let's save this and go back to our form. Now the else statement, in our else statement, we're going to first of all check, because right here on our form we have DDMMYY, which is by default what you see when you load the form. Okay, now some people don't worry about that. It's because of our PHP script here, but I'm quickly going to view the form here. Now right here you see when you load the form for the first time, you're going to see DDMMYY. Okay, and some people might forget filling the original date of birth here. Maybe there might be in a haste or one in the other. So we're going to first of all check this and see if the user happens to submit with these default values here. Then we're going to echo something back to the user. Okay, so that's what we're going to do next. Now we're going to say if DOB is equal to DD, okay, or MOB is equal to MM, like that, or YOB, that's variable YOB, is equal to YYYY. Okay, now if this is equal to this, or this is equal to this, or this is equal to this, we are going to echo out something to the user. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, let's quickly know what we're going to echo to the user. Now we're going to echo, let's use our echo statement there. Please enter a valid date of birth. Okay, I think that'll be okay. Please enter a valid date of birth. Else, now if the user enters a valid date of birth, that means our form has been checked if it's set, if been checked if it's empty, and if been checked if these are not equal to DD and YY. That means it has passed all the checks and all the tests. So what we're going to do now is to tell it how to impute our data into the database. So before we're going to look at that, we'll first of all create our database, because we've not created our database. We don't know what is in our database. We don't know anything about our database. So in our next video, we're going to create our database and see how we can insert the values of this form. We are quickly going to create our database now, before we come back to our coding right here. So I'll go to my browser and open my PHP Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on new here and write a new database. In this case, I will call my database teen, and I'm going to click on create. Okay, database have been created. Now that is my teen database right there, and now it's asking me the name of my table. I want to call my table users. Okay, I want to call it users, and they are asking how many columns do you want your table to have. Now what you're going to do is, since we have 9 input fields here, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, now we are quickly going to say 10, because the 10th one will be for the user ID. Okay, it will be for the ID column. So we'll click on go, and it displays a list of where we can write that. So we'll say user ID, that's the first one, which will be an auto increment. We need at most 2 characters. This will be the index, will be primary, we'll make it the primary key so that we can use it for relationships. Okay, so this will be auto increment AI. Then the next one will be surname. This will be first name. This will be day of birth. Okay, now let's say day of birth, or let's do it like this, day of birth. No, I prefer it this way. Let's just say DOB. Okay, let's just say DOB. Let's say this is MOB, and this is YOB, this is email, this is phone, this is phone, and this is other phone. Okay, now, and the last one here should be bio. Okay, now we want our surname to be variable character, and we want it to have at most 30 characters. First name should be variable character. I want to give it 30 also. Now DOB should be integer, because the date of birth, the day, and we want it to carry at most 2. Now the month of birth should be variable character. We need like 3 characters for it at most. Now the year of birth should be integer. We need 4 for this. Now the email should be variable character. We need at most, let's give it 60. The phone should be a big integer. Now the reason is because if we set it to an integer, some phone numbers are normally or are usually 11 digits. Okay, now if we set it to a normal integer, a normal integer carries at most 10 digits. Okay, but a big integer carries more than that. So let's set it to a big integer and say 11 digits. Same thing with the other phone column. Let's say 11 here. And then for the bio, we are going to set that to text, and we are going to limit the write up to 1,000 characters. Okay, now the reason is because we don't want excessive typing. So once it exceeds 1,000, it's going to trim and get only the first 1,000. So we are through with what we're doing. We'll quickly go down and click on save here, and our table becomes saved. Now you can check the structure and see we have our 10 columns there. Now if you browse, you discover that you see nothing because we've not inserted anything, but at least we have our database set and our table is also set. Now let's go back to our code and see how we can insert these things in our database. Okay, so now we say if the date of birth is equal to DD, or this is equal to MM, or year of birth is equal to YYY, please, it should echo please enter a valid date of birth. Okay, now if that is not the case, that is else, if that's not the case, then what we want to do now is it should pass the information that we are going to write here to the database. But first of all, before you do anything with your database, you first of all need to create a connection. Okay, connect to the server, connect to the database before any other thing. So what we are going to do now is on top of here, let's quickly do that. Let's assign some variables, like let's say our hosts. Okay, our host is equal to localhost. Okay, and our user or username, let's say username, is equal to root. That's what I'm using. Okay, and our password, let's assign that pass. Our password is nothing. Okay, currently I don't have a password, so our password is nothing. And then the name of our database is so that's database. So database is our database was teen, so we have teen, and I think that is it. Now let's do a Control S there. So the first thing we need to do is to call on or to create a connection. Okay, so if this is equal to this, please enter a valid date of birth. Now else, okay, else what we want to do is we want to say connect. Let's assign that we connect. Okay, now we say connect, we want to say MySQLi connect. So we have there. Now the first one is the host. So we have the host, we have the username. Now we are trying to connect to the database, and then we have the password, which is variable pass. Now it should connect to the database, or else it should die. Cannot connect to server. Okay, now this line of code here checks and connects to your server. Okay, now the next thing we are going to do is to connect to the database. Let's call that DB, and we'll use the function MySQLi connect. No, sorry, MySQLi select DB there, and we are going to call on the two arguments, which is the connection, in this case connect. Okay, and secondly the name of the database. In this case we have the database as teen, and we've assigned it to the variable database. Okay, so we also want to tell it or it should die, or die cannot connect to database. Okay, now if this is not connecting, or if this did not connect, then it should give us this statement. so that we'll know that our code or what we did not actually connect to the database. Okay, now but if it passed this line and then it also connected to the database, then what we need to do now is to feed it with what we want it to do. Now we want it to actually get the values from our input fields right here and then send it to our database right here. Okay, so when we come back in our next video, we'll see how we are going to do that. But for now, just take a look at the code and I'll see you there. So now we are going to use MySQL statement in a PHP format to insert our form input to our database, and the statement is like this. Now I'll scroll so that you take a look at the statement very well. Now I assigned the statement to a variable called query. Now the statement is insert into users. Mind you, our table from here, our table is users. Okay, since we've connected to the server and to the database team, it knows the table we are talking about because there are no two tables that are the same in one database. So here, insert into users, table user ID, surname, first name, date of birth, month of birth, year of birth, email, phone, other phone, and bio. Now these here are the columns in our database, if you could remember from our previous video. Now we are inserting these values into those columns. Okay, and since we've assigned the values of our form name to a variable, we are going to use the variable so that it will be very dynamic. Anything that the user enters into the form is being replaced and is being imputed in our database. Okay, so the first one is null because it's user's ID, and if I say it's null, since it's auto increment, it will automatically be incrementing the number without you telling it to do so. So we have surname, we have first name, we have day of birth, month of birth, year of birth, we have the email, the phone number, the other phone number, and the bio. Okay, so right now we are going to execute this query. Okay, we are going to execute this query, and to do that you use what we call MySQLi query, and it carries, or it has two arguments. The first argument is the connect argument, which connects the database. Okay, that's connect, and the second one is the query. Now that is the second one. Okay, so we'll put our semicolon there. If it connects to the server, connects to the database, and it takes this query and imputes it, or insert it into our database here. Now the next thing we are going to do is to close our connection. So we'll call on MySQLi close. Okay, that closes a particular connection to the database. So we just impute one variable, which is the connection variable. Okay, or argument rather. So now this is our what is going to happen if all of this, or if the form pass all these tests right here. Okay, now if it passes all these tests, it's going to do all of this, and we want to confirm that by telling it to echo thank you for registering. Your form was successfully, or your details rather, your details was submitted successfully. Okay, so thank you for registering. Your details was submitted successfully. Okay, now that is to say, if all these things are true, it's going to echo thank you for registering. Your details was submitted successfully. Okay, so now that is the end of our code. Now let's go and test this. Let's see what is going to happen. So we'll go to our browser and go to our local hosts. Okay, we'll go to our local host, and there we'll have our form.php. That is our form. Okay, so we'll quickly do something here. Let me put a break tag between the PHP and the HTML. Let me do that right here. Another break tag here, and then I'm going to put a horizontal row right here and a break tag right there. Okay, so that it will move the form down a little. There we go. So now we are going to try to submit this form without imputing anything and see if our code actually works out. Okay, there we go. Impute all fields. Okay, now from what we have there, since the whole thing is empty, we say when it's empty, it should say please fill in all fields. Okay, now let's try to impute one or two things. Universal team. Okay, and now let's leave this empty, because in our code we say something that if this is equal to this or this is equal to this, it say please enter a valid date of birth. So we are going to check and see if that is actually working. So let's say universal, for instance, let's say universal at yahoo.com. Okay, now let's enter a phone number, and let's enter a second phone number. Let's call this 07082606676, like that. Let's just write a little text here, I love PHP. Okay, now let's try to submit that and see. Now it did not submit. Why? Because we did not impute a valid date of birth. It said please enter a what? Valid date of birth. Now if we happen to enter something valid, we say universal. Let's quickly fill that team here. Okay, and we say our date of birth is 5th of March 2002, and our email is universal at yahoo.com, and we have a phone number here, another one here. Now our little text is I love PHP, and we happen to submit that. Now you see, thank you for registering, your details was successfully submitted. Now this is to confirm that what we did was successfully inserted into our database. And to confirm that, let's quickly go to phpMyAdmin to confirm if our details were inserted or not. Okay, so I'm going to browse and we'll quickly check that. Now if you look at my table here, you see user ID 1, surname universal, first name team, day of birth, month of birth, year of birth, like that. And oh my goodness, this is perfect. Okay, so take a good look at that. I will quickly insert another one. Now let's say this is Thomas Datums. Let's say this is Thomas Datums, and I have a day of birth of let me quickly check that. Okay, and let me give an email .com, and we have a phone, another one. Let me just duplicate this. Okay, now let's say I love Java, for instance, and I say submit. Voila, your details were successfully submitted. Now your phpMyAdmin tells you that, and we have 2 records in our database, and everything is working perfectly well. Now take a look at this. If you don't understand, go back to the previous videos and watch some of our videos on how we went about doing this form. I think we've come to the end of this course. I think it was interesting, it was nice. I actually love taking this course, and I'll see you next some other time, maybe taking some other course for the company or for the organization. I love you all. Take care of yourself, and happy programming with PHP.